This video will not have spoilers. You can watch it without fear.
Don't blame us if you get in trouble, Star.
It wasn't a question of whether or not I would help, and besides, we're talking about a direct request from All Might himself. If my master's got himself in trouble, why would I even think twice before rushing to his side?
Hey guys, how are you? I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to talk about the heroine with the most powerful quirk in My Hero Academia. And for those of you who don't know me yet, I'm the Monio, the interdimensional demon that talks the most about My Hero Academia on YouTube, and you are on my channel. At the end of the 6th season finale of My Hero Academia, a new heroine is introduced as Star and Stripe, going to help All Might. She is very confident in her own right and incredibly promising, so her strength will be a huge asset in the fight against Shigaraki. However, as fans wait for the anime's 7th season, a few questions plague their minds. Who exactly is this new heroine and what is her quirk? Star and Stripe is the heroine name of Cathleen Bate. She is the highest rated heroine in the United States and the most powerful woman in the world. As a child, she was inspired to follow in All Might's footsteps after he saved her life. Later, All Might became the highest ranked hero in Japan and the symbol of peace to the world. Having been inspired by her savior, Cathleen Bate became a professional hero and her appearance is modeled after All Might's. Star and Stripe has gained a reputation for its incredibly powerful quirk and combat prowess. A very cool thing is that this is the first character that appeared in the movies and was later canonized in the manga, which is very difficult to happen. Normally the most that is done is a quote from some filler movie, but nothing that impacts the history. But the Monio, where did she appear? What movie is this? The film is My Hero Academia 2 Heroes. It is the first feature film of the work. In it we see All Might at the beginning of his career acting as a professional hero in the USA, and in a certain scene, he saves a family that is in a car, and one of the children present there is Kathleen, who since that day has had a huge admiration for All Might and the desire to become a hero. I have a personal theory that quirks take DNA into account, but can also be influenced by the user's personality and will, and in this case Kathleen's desire to be like her idol was so strong that this was reflected in his quirk, and it awakened even greater power to New Order, surpassing not only All Might, but also most heroes in existence, being the most powerful individual quirk in the entire work. One interesting thing is that, in a way, Star and Stripes is an analogy to the USA, due to the fact that the USA has historically been involved in conflicts outside its region, and due to its quirk, which consists of imposing its will on enemies, and how America's greatest symbol, the Star and Stripes approach reinforces the context of the American way of doing things. Kathleen already arrives with her jet planes, and says that she is going to kill Shigaraki, very different from Japanese heroes, who always try to use death as a last resort, even against great villains, like All for One. So we can say that the author made a parallel between what Star and Stripes does, and the country it represents. But the Monio, and this new order you mentioned, how does this quirk work? What does she do exactly? New Order works as follows. After touching something and uttering its name, it can impose 2 conditions, one on the target that was touched, and another on itself. When that happens, the manga's balloon has a US flag, but as she herself said, she can only impose these 2 rules at a time, and one is always intended for her, and that's why she can be so powerful. Even though he's not All Might's level. She can for example impose on herself the rule of being immortal, and she will be immortal, but if she needs to fly, she can set the flight rule and fly away. If she needs to be super strong, she can disable flight and set strength, and so on. As for the enemy, she can define that he will lose his powers, or that his body will be paralyzed, or that he will be 100 times stronger and the enemy 100 times weaker, and you can think of many other possibilities and leave them in the comments. But the fact is that her ability is extremely powerful for combat against a single enemy, making her invincible depending on the condition she imposes on her and the opponent. But the Monio, is this quirk unlimited? Can it define absolutely anything no matter how powerful? And I tell you no, there is a limit, a very high limit, but there is still a limit. For example, she cannot increase her strength infinitely, or define that she will punch with the weight of the mass of a star, as this would exceed the physical limits of her body. Also, if Cathleen sets a very absurd rule for herself, the rule she could set on the enemy will be weakened, depending on how absurd it is. It's like she has a percentage and has to divide it between her and the opponent. She can define something extremely strong for herself, that uses 90% of the power, but if she wants to use the condition on the opponent too, there will only be 10% left, so it can't be something very powerful. Generally, Cathleen leaves the rule of herself always active, keeping her super strength, since to activate it on the opponent she needs to touch him, but instead of setting a rule on an enemy she can also set it on an object, or something other than her body and that she can touch, such as the ground, the sea, or even the air, and in this case, there is no physical limitation that living beings have, being practically unlimited what she can do. For example, at one point she controls the atmosphere, turning the air into a replica 1,000 times her size, and hitting the Shigaraki with frightening power. But the Monio, she doesn't even need to do that. Wouldn't it be easier for her to simply define that the enemy loses consciousness, or loses his powers, or that he simply dies? And I tell you, yes. However, it's not that simple, since to apply a condition to the enemy, she needs to touch him, and also know his name, and it has to be his real name, or it won't work. So if she's fighting someone she doesn't know the name of, she won't be able to apply a condition on him. But the Monio, let's assume that a person was registered with a name, and then he changes that name. For example, which name will be considered the first name of registration? Not necessarily. The name that will be considered in this case is the name with which the person most identifies, the one that he himself considers his real name. In addition to being one of the most powerful quirks, New Order is also one of the most creative in the entire work. All these rules and limitations for using the quirk reminds me a lot of the stands in JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, where you have rules, very well established, of what can and cannot be done. About the Star and Stripes character, I think she is a character with a lot of potential, but who had a very short participation and was little used, which is a shame and a great waste. But what about you? Do you think we'll have more Star and Stripe in the future? Leave it in the comments, and if you like My Hero Academia, subscribe to follow the next content. Until next time, my people, demonic hugs.